Who am I? Well, I am the daughter of the Dagda, the good god of the Tuatha Danann. I dwell in poetry and learning, smithcraft and healing, among other things. Druidic magic, wisdom, leadership, fertility, generosity, abundance, and many, many skills were passed down to me through my father. I am of Ireland. I have watched her, loved her, and abided with her since before time. I am of the land, the sea, and the sky, and of the unseen world, the one you call the other world. Yes, I am liminal, neither of this world nor the other world, but of both. I was reborn on the threshold. My mother was both without and within, as am I, and indeed, as you are. You are indeed a blessed tribe who meet to tell and retell the stories and connect with the wisdom of the land. And I am pleased to tell you these things. Some say I am between myth and history, pagan and Christian, oral and written, vernacular and Latin, folkloric and ecclesiastical. All of this is true. And yet, what of it? Call me a goddess or call me a saint. Both are true, yet neither on its own is the complete story. Both are incomplete. Time is not important. Rules are not important. Arguments about absolutes are not important. I am timeless, immutable, and ineffable, and you may be too. You may say, I am a holy woman. That works, because holy means there is no separation between the tangible world of our senses and the invisible world of our spirit, of our ancestors, and our inspirited land. The other world, the unseen, the spirit of generosity, reverence for nature, love of music, song, the essence of our sex, all are available to those who can still themselves and wait for the veil of busyness to be lifted. We can be whole. Every loving act, every reverent pause, every joyful celebration, every sorrowful sigh. These, too, are an expression of wholeness, a way of holiness. You may have heard how my father despaired of my giving nature. He even tried to marry me off to the King of Leinster. Left alone in his carriage while he went to parley, I was ordered to stay put and take care of his much-loved sword. Well, sure, no man could appear before the king bearing arms. And sure, what could I do when a needy but gentle and sweet man begged alms? Sure, all I had was the sword. Of course I gave it to him. But my father was so furious. He started to clatter me around the head and shoulders. The King of Leinster was not impressed with my father's behaviour, but even less impressed with my declaration that I would love nothing more than to give all his wealth to relieve the suffering of the needy and broken. Well, my father eventually gave up. He allowed me to study under the greatest druids. I became the chief druidess at our grove. We were the keepers of the eternal flame, our group of druidesses who lived simple lives, tending the flame, a fire that burned without forming ashes. We were 21 in our little school in the Forest of Oak. Each one tended the flame each night, and I always took the watch on the 21st night. We were a happy company and generously taught and served our tuatha. So, why did I, a druidess of great learning and patience, respond to Patrick's message as I did? Well, I'll tell you, there were three things. There are always three. One, we had started to write things down. Stories and learning from beyond our shores were arriving to us, the knowledge keepers, my druids. And I knew writing would change our lives forever. What was ancient and alive in our stories and poems and songs were being put down on the skins of calves. This would change our world and our ways forever. Knowledge was no longer solely carried within the living bodies of a man or a woman passed down from her forebears and kept sacred for the next generation. So writing needed to be embraced by those with the right spirit, and our stories would need to be minded by the learned. 2. The message of Patricus was about this three-person God who was really one. By the way, I believed God the Father was really God our Mother. I recognized the Spirit as that which we Irish had embodied and celebrated when we accessed our unseen world. And this Jesus was a God of compassion, generosity, and humility. 3rd reason. Well, Ireland was accepting this new three-person God in one with enthusiasm. And why shouldn't I? Familiar with the timeless truth of our Mother Earth, sea and sky, also embrace this triple God. I saw in Christ a God for the less fortunate, the sick, the poor, the sad, and the vulnerable. He was a great man for compassion. Our less fortunate, the destitute, and some slaves, they deserved light and love too. Now, Patrick was a strict man, but kindly. And when I looked in his eyes, I perceived a soul light that was sincere, loving, and true. I trusted his message. Right there, I wanted to be baptized, not in milk, like at the time of my birth, but with water from the well of Steges. Patrick, of course, was unaware of the symbolism, yet I knew the connection to my goddess self and to all the souls of Ireland. My father knew well enough not to argue when I wanted to take the veil. It was unspoken, but we were both well aware that Ishnok, the place for my dedication, was the navel of the goddess Ireland, a direct connection to our people long gone, to knowledge, magic, and the unseen realm. We reverenced our Mother Ireland in her appearance in the land, sea, and sky. We knew that the human spirit is only honoured in unity with the land, the sea, the sky, and the other world. The message of Christ suited our understanding and practices. We already knew how abundance and joy could be invoked. Christ was an ally. We wanted our stories and poems in reverence of nature to survive writing and the news customs. And what better way than to welcome the triad God and keep our spirits whole. We wanted this Jesus to give protection to our people, to bless them and their cows with fertility, to bless the land and keep the babies safe. Well, time passed. Many signs showed that the Jesus God was a welcome part and a welcome addition to our practice. My little church of holy women tending the light of our ancestors saw many wonders. Today, I think they call them miracles. My favorite was the time I hung my cloak on a sunbeam. Mighty. The Christian message moved across our land. We embraced Jesus' message, and who could resist his story? What a great God. Humble, forgiving, rebellious, speaking truth to power, and so utterly kind. We happily built our monasteries, and there were many great men and women who led the new church. Our daily practices were informed by kindness, love, humility, and truth. The God of thunder and retribution wasn't popular, but Christ was. We developed a way of unburdening ourselves whenever we felt our spirits low on account of an act or a thought that was against the spirit of this Christ. We each had an Anankara, a soul friend, someone you could trust forever. We would unburden ourselves to our friend, and then if he was a priest, he would take the shame and pain away. We would resolve to make amends by an act of charity or some prayer or some such. And we felt good. This became known as confession. We had heard the stories about brutal treatment of penitents in other places, of even being cast out of the church. And you know, we never abandoned our old ways. We acknowledged the spirit of the trees. We gathered at the sources of water. We remembered all who walked the land and honoured their lives. We marked the fire days and the passing of the seasons. My day was also Imbolg. a time when sap is rising, when the lambs are developing and the cows heavy with milk for their unborn calves. We collected dew that day. Many people have taken the fire symbol of my cross to be that of Christ. So be it. If that's what Brigit's cross is to you, so be it. Sure, the message is the same. And let me say, in my day, women were cherished as leaders in the church. Things changed slowly, but inexorably, the goddess was expunged. And by one day, there was an agreement made. And one day there was an agreement made that changed the course of our lives and of the church. A row had broken out between the insular church, that of Ireland and the western part of Britain, and the eastern part of Britain, who were very much connected with Rome and with the rule of some guy who was very popish anyway. So they decided they would have a synod. That's like a meeting for the top brass. And they had chatted to and fro. And the big issue at the time was how the Irish church was celebrating Easter. It was always on a different day to those in Rome. Now, us Irish are pragmatic, and we go for the highest, let's say we go for the highest principle. So the English church thought they had a bit of a battle on their hands, but we rolled over on the basis that, hey, Jesus told Peter, gave him the keys of the church, and he was the first pope. And the pope that was there now was directly appointed by Jesus, Peter. So if the Pope wanted Easter to be every, the first Friday after the first blue moon, who are we to argue? So we gave in, no problem. We'll take on the Roman Easter. Now, there were the other issues of, the way we had confession, the role of the women in the church, the kind of murky role that people who hadn't been consecrated were actually doing some of the holy work. Quite a lot of things that they thrashed out and discussed. But I must say that was the day that I think the goddess was pushed out of the church. And over the years and since, church has changed. Many of our old ways are still embraced and practiced, especially in the rural areas. But I fear once the goddess is denied, there's a sense of duty and ruling and being told what to do by men. So all I can say is each of you, in your own way, have within you the capacity to become whole and holy. And you don't need anybody to instruct you in this way. It's just a way of seeing. Continue to share the stories, tell the stories, celebrate the stories, reimagine them. See how they can inform your daily lives. I've been made aware of a recent decision in my country to allow the business of birthing to be left in the hands of people who are led by the rule makers in Rome. And I fear some of them have forgotten the soft, compassionate heart of Christ. So all I can say to you is, invoke me. Take on some of the practices that I and many others in this country have done forever. Go to a source of water. Watch the water coming from the earth, springing from the earth, almost like it's a witness to creation itself. It's an act of unconditional generosity. Allow your spirit to accept this generosity. So although they're called holy wells, it's a small h, it's a wholesome. It's a symbol of the source of life. And from a spring, you get your hopes and your dreams. And you can wash your soul clean again. So keep doing that. Keep invoking Ireland. And some days, when you take the time to pause and the busyness falls away, you can possibly use the silver branch of perception, and you can hear the timeless wisdom of the land. Bless you all.